Holidays are over. Well, except for the big one, Friday night. Still have to survive that one, but this is it was a great week. But it's like my vacation starts on the 26th when all the parties are over and all the other social engagements, and now I can actually relax. Um, and hopefully my boss isn't watching because I'll be pretending to work this whole week. But I think we all know the truth. So, hey, everyone, welcome to Getting Back to Zero, Tuesday edition. Thrilled to have to be here tonight. Again, just got through the holidays, and we're kind of talking about the new year and what we want to change, what our goals are. We're going to do some work in the upcoming weeks about classes and some workshops on how to not fail within 13 minutes after setting New Year's resolutions like I typically do. But we're going to get into it. But tonight I've got a guest that I'm thrilled about, the Sober Dog himself. Kyle Ruggeri is here from New York, and I am so happy to have him on. And Kyle, welcome. How you doing, buddy? Welcome to Get Back to Zero.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
How was the holiday? Anything exciting happen?
Just it was good to be present, be there with family. With COVID, it's tricky because these couple people cancel. These couple are in town that didn't expect it, so a little bit of back and forth, but survived it. Enjoyed some family time.
A lot of people are getting it the last month.
Oh,
we've had a ton of cancellations of events.
Yep, exactly. How was your holidays? Good?
You know what it was? It was like I was saying, I survived them. It was, you know what? We talk so much on this show and in our little groups about planning. And I did a lot of planning, and I had a lot of escapes, and I had a lot of go-tos, and I had a lot of accountability, and I had a lot of preparation. So the events went smoothly. Not that, it's, one thing with sobriety, I'm coming up on 2 years, and there's a whole relearning process of how to deal with social situations. It's not something, I'd forgotten how to deal with that sober, just relying on myself. So the holidays, even though this was my second one, it's still kind of brand new. I'm experiencing Christmas Eve, social, the parties, sober. I mean, so it's like a whole new experience for me.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great point. And my sobriety dates, around the holidays too, which was typically a tough time. So I know exactly what you mean. And each year it gets a little better and easier to deal with. So
I heard some people talking in groups that their day one was December 26th. And I didn't want to, but I wanted to say, I really want details about how your Christmas went, because I'm sure that was that had to have been a blowout. Or there's some same thing. You hear January 2nd or whatever, January 1st.
Yeah,
there's some evenings went down in flames, but
always those stories. Mine is around Thanksgiving, but a lot of people is the Christmas nightmare of said year or whatever, and it's oh boy. And hey, I'm just glad they found the next day or whatever day to hit their quote bottom.
I did a lot of just talking to a lot of people and how you doing, what's you got planned, how are you going to handle it, whatever. And there was a lot of phone calls checking in and the support, which is the key to it. Well, Kyle, I'm thrilled you're here. You are the Sober Dog. I want to hear all the details, but I want to hear your story, because the little bit that I saw looking at your YouTube channel and your website, you've had some interesting times, to say the least. So start from the beginning. Tell us about your road. How'd that go?
Of course. So, I mean, as far as upbringing, I have a great family. Neither of my parents are, addicts, alcoholics, anything. So didn't have what, I hear a lot in recovery of childhood traumas and moving around, thing like that. I had a great childhood, but there's always something up here that just like you talked about, dealing with the social situations, things, false expectations. We talked about sports earlier a little bit. These things I set in my head that just didn't fit the outside world that I would never tell anybody about. And this is 12, 13, 14 on top of puberty, all that coming around, middle school, all that. And when alcohol was put in front of me that first time, it was, I didn't know it then, but there's this light bulb went off of, wow, that's why adults have their glass of wine. That's why people have beers at football games, because I feel smoother and I feel like I can talk better, and the anxiety went away for a little bit. That also planted a seed in the future. Whenever a different substance would get put in front of me, well, remember alcohol did that, wonder what this will do, or that. And it kind of broke down all these barriers, because I remember being 11, 12, I will never smoke a cigarette. A couple years later, smoking, I'll never try cocaine, doing that. And but it didn't take off incredible like from day one or anything. About 13 years old, that was the first time I drank and smoked weed that same year. And but like I said, those things were planted. Sports.
You know what's interesting? You just real quick, Kyle, you mentioned this.
Yeah.
I prefer, if I'm gonna run, I like to run downhill. It's a lot easier. Going through puberty, adolescence, high school, whatever, it's tough.
Mm-hmm.
And it requires us to do new things, new coping, we have to make changes. It's work. It's thrust at us with these changes in our life. Alcohol made dealing with those changes a lot easier. It made it a downhill run versus an uphill run for me. So It was interesting you said that. But so anyways, go ahead.
That's a great point. Exactly. Sports was something that always kept me in check, so I did well in football. I played baseball and basketball for a little bit too, and I did a karate outside of school for a while. But those took the back door to football about 14, 15. I started doing, pretty good and playing up a grade. And so that always kind of kept me in check. But I also then gravitated to the guys on the team who partied like I did. And this progressed through high school. I did start getting consequences pretty early. A week after I got my license at 16 years old, I got a DWI, just stupid. And that's I can look back and see it now of the red flags. But at 16, me and my group were already driving drunk pretty consistently. And nothing changed when I got my car and license. And, we went out. It was a week after my grandfather sold me his own, this beautiful Lincoln he had. He barely put any miles on it. So, I want to drive. It's my car. I'm driving tonight. Went out partying, drinking, thank God no one's killed or anything, crashed, but just speeding, and got pulled over and, started the consequences. That was my first introduction to recovery, so I go in to tell my football coach, and the athletic director's like, kick him off the team. We can't have 16-year-olds getting DWIs. A couple days later, they called me in, and they're like, yeah, they said this.
When they watched game film is what they did.
Exactly.
Oh, it's him? Wait a minute. We can't lose him. I thought you meant the guy at the end of the bench there. We were going to kick him off the team, but. Exactly.
I started both sides at the time, and they're like, all right, your punishment's 5 AA meetings. So I got introduced to there, didn't pay attention at all. Just went to a couple meetings totally. Yeah, I actually got high before. So with zero interest in doing anything different, but, I was just a young knucklehead, didn't know much else. And ironically, too, so my court punishment was 18 months without a license and 3 years probation. The probation, for whatever reason, was an absolute joke. They showed up the first time I had to go see them. Then I had to see them once a month, nothing else. Never showed up, never drug tested, never curfew, nothing. So after like 2 months, I basically just lived like it wasn't even there. In the 18 months without a license, I used that as an excuse to just ramp up my drinking. Every time we were out, who's going to drive? Who's going to drive? Not me. I can't. You guys know I can't. So I'm just going. And Also around this time, a lot of other drugs are getting involved. I was just willing to try anything. And with the exception of weed, marijuana, I loved everything else and wanted to do more because it let me escape from, just this rat race of what, things going on in my head. And also I started getting hurt on the field. With me, it was concussions. And so I got a couple in high school, and I was always, I got to be there for the team. I got to be a tough guy. So I'd always lie the next day or the day after when they asked me how I was feeling. I'm okay. I'm good. In all the concussion protocol wasn't like it is now. So 2-3 days later, I could BS my way, get back on the field. And this would come back to, really bite me in the ass later on because I just never let them heal, do the right thing. Ended up going and playing football at Edinburgh University, Pennsylvania, D2 school. And again, we get to school August, I don't know, give or take the first week of August for football, a month before everybody, do our three weeks of double sessions, triples, all that. And then school opens up. I didn't even make it 7 days. I got arrested at school. I was walking home from a party, and those blue emergency call buttons on campus, I thought it was a good idea to drop kick it, and the alarm went off and the cops chased me, and I chew tobacco. So I had to chew in, and, when he took me down, I spit it out and it spit on him. So I got charged with spitting on a cop, and this whole ordeal, I ended up getting like a probation type thing in Pennsylvania for that too. But it just kept on this track of consistently getting into trouble, but it was never major trouble. Or I always had a way to get out of it through sports or getting a good lawyer. And it was always like that. I'd show up to court, my grades are good, he's on the football team. Okay, give him probation. So I kind of put that in the back of my head, like, keep doing what you got to do, producing outside things, and you can get away with a lot of this other stuff too, which isn't
address everything but the problem.
Exactly. And at the same time too, the concussions continued in college, and I got 2 more and plus 1 off the field, and that was it. My second year there, I got 2 back-to-back in like a 30-day period. So this was also the same time everything's going on in the news with all the concussion protocol, the movie and everything. So they told me I had to sit out for a 365-day period. I decided this is time to call it quits if I want to have any brain cells left, which I did. But that left I'm sure you can relate. I identified myself for 15 years as a football player.
Right.
Now I'm living in a house with 3 guys who play football. I'm not playing. My whole schedule is based on practice. I have all this free time. I got all these post-concussive symptoms, and just had no idea what to do. Filled it with drugs and alcohol immediately. Also, I had some pretty bad neck pain from the concussions, just getting your head kind of crammed down. Went to the physical therapy, did all that through the doctor. Long story short, he ends up putting me on Oxycontin. Started with Percocets over a 6-month period, moves its way up to 30 milligram oxys. And along with that, alcohol's going up, partying's going up. And now I'm taking the pills, just going through my whole script in 10, 15 days, snorting them, taking them with alcohol, along with all the other stuff that I had become accustomed to doing here or there throughout high school and college. Somehow I was able to get through the next couple of years while it progressed, but nothing major as far as like outside consequences. I was dying internally, but survived it, and came back to Rochester, New York, where I'm from, and just the opioids took total control, and that spiral of addiction really went out of control. I tried to do the geographical cure. I moved to Baltimore with a couple of my college buddies who they drank, but they were, good influences comparative to who I had here. And they still are. They're good guys. They do like an average person. They have their couple beers and they're watching the game and they're fine. But they, and again, not to their fault. I'm coming down there like they're not addiction counselors. They have no idea. So a couple months in on a Friday, Saturday night, hey, let's go out. Yeah, let's go out. I could have a couple. And for me, having a couple turned and went more and more and couldn't find my oxy. So what's available? Heroin. Wide open everywhere in Baltimore. And I loved speedballing too. So every time I did heroin, I had to do coke and mix them together. New Year's Eve was
that one of those that you years ago would have, if someone had mentioned to you an athlete doing heroin, you would have said, "You're freaking crazy. There's no way in hell I would ever do that."
Absolutely.
I mean, that's yep. That's what I hate to say that. That's what losers do, and I'm not one of them.
Yep.
That was my mentality. Now I never got into that, but that was how close was I? I don't know. Probably pretty close.
1,000%. Yeah. And I'm sure too, it's like we could sit here with a sober mind and say absolutely no to whatever. But as each consecutive drink or maybe this other substance gets put in, then something gets put on the table at 3 a.m. when I've had a bunch. It's been a depressed week, this and that. All of a sudden, a week before, I said, "Heroin, are you out of your mind?" Now it's, maybe a little bit, or he just did it. I know him and he's not dead. So yeah, exactly. That's how it went with everything. Cigarettes, I'll never touch that.
Started smoking. And you take a guy like me that is the complete king of succumbing to peer pressure. I'm just lucky that I didn't have the buddies that were doing it. Because just when you said, he hasn't dropped dead, so he's sitting there, he looks fine. Yeah. So I would have said, "Oh, okay, then this must be a low dosage, the good kind. I guess I'm good." I would have been right there.
The good kind.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's how my mind would have worked.
Me too. Yeah. Yeah, it's all right. Or somebody we trust and know, or at least, to an extent. Exactly. And so I was going to say, speaking of the holidays, New Year's Eve was a big ordeal for me in Baltimore, 2012 going into 2013. So I was DD for the night. We lived like 20, 25 minutes outside of Baltimore. But we went downtown for the night and I was sober most of the night. And then we went to this all you could drink bar. And a friend came up and said, "You guys can sleep at my house. I live down the block." Everyone agrees. So all of a sudden I get a free pass. I don't got to drive. It's like 11:30. We already paid some amount of money, $100 to get in this place, all you could drink. So from 11:30 to like 12:15, give or take, I went up to the bar and was like, "Shots of tequila and don't stop. Just go. I'm sober. I got to catch up." I wake up the next day. It's 4:30 p.m. I'm in Johns Hopkins Hospital. I'm strapped down to the bed. I got a catheter in. I got a thing in my throat. I'm naked. I have no idea what happened. The nurse is calling me Nemo, and what happened? I got a cut on my head. Somehow I fell off the Baltimore Harbor about 30 feet down, hit my head on the way down into the frozen Chesapeake, pretty much frozen, wasn't totally frozen over, and started floating out. And a buddy had to jump in to hold me up until the fire department and the Coast Guard unit, whatever was there, got there to bring me out and save me. And it was one of those I could look back at it now and see how insane it really was. Like, I don't remember anything. I don't know if I jumped. I don't know if I got in a fight, if I tripped, what happened. The worst part was my other buddy on the pier didn't know what to do, and they assumed I was going to die between the hypothermia and just whatever. So he calls my father in New York and is like, "I think we're going to lose him." And like my dad, obviously I've talked to him about it. It's just heart-wrenching seeing his face when we talk about this story. Like, that's some of the consequences I put friends and family through that I can't imagine being that helpless, hours away. Your son's friend calls you, who's, he's drunk himself, not making sense. Like, "We're going to lose your son. He's in the water." is just a terrible
It's
ordeal.
that day when I finally realized the damage I was doing was not just to me, but to my kids, to my wife, to that. When I that's the one that I can handle it myself. I didn't really care what I was doing to myself. That didn't matter. But what I did to them, when I finally realized that impact, that was a hard one to swallow.
Yeah, I think
Kyle. When you look back, because I always analyze, I try to figure this whole thing out with myself. When you went into the bar, and you said you went up to the bartender and said, "I'm behind. Give me shot." Do you know why you needed shot? What were you unhappy? Were you wanting to fit in? Did you just want to feel even better? And I don't know if there's an answer, because there may be all of the above. But do you know why? Because you're a good-looking guy, you come across extremely confident. Why do you need to do shot? I mean, you don't come across a guy that needs to fit in.
That is an excellent question. I think it's like you said, a combination of all of that. And ironically, I never did feel like I fit in with whoever I was with. And I also was one of them people that it was always, there was never, like, I don't know if it's the alcoholic addict brain, genetics, how it comes to play, but never is the possibility of like, let's have a couple drinks cross my mind. It is always, why am I not getting, obliterated to some extent? Maybe not blackout or act an idiot, but like, I don't think I ever started drinking or using anything else without the intention of like, I am getting high. I am getting drunk. I'm not just getting a one sip buzz.
How would you have felt if I invited you to a party and I said, there's free beer. Everyone gets 3. That's all you get tonight, but everyone gets 3 beers tonight. That's all you get.
I probably wouldn't drink.
No, I wouldn't even. Why? I wouldn't even start, because that would just make me angry. I'd be better if I didn't have any.
Yeah.
But I would still take them, because I wouldn't be able to say no. But then after the 3 were gone, I'd be miserable. My evening would be just. I'd be.
Exactly, and and you say about the confident thing too. Most of my life, not very, I'd put on an outward facade, but not very confident about a lot of things, which, doesn't come from like upbringing, or because I have like a great family and a good male role model in my life. My fathers are my best friends, great father, but it was, that's a lot of recovery in learning to be okay with, everyone doesn't have to like you, and that people pleasing. And so all that at that time wasn't there. And that's how I knew to either A, fit in, or B, not care what they thought was to just, and why it was important. I really don't know.
99 in the room that love me, and one person can't stand me. There's only one person I even care about at that end of the night. And I'm going to call that person. I'm going to, you just don't understand. How can you not like me? And that would just destroy me. When I got 99 people that love me, no, they don't matter. I got to get to the one is the only thing that matters.
That is so crazy how and why that works to me.
Yeah.
It's such
Let
a good
go.
point.
Who gives a crap? Yes. That's his loss, her loss, whatever. It's
exactly.
Not, But no, that's the only one that matters to me.
Exactly. And it's so stupid, but it does. It's,
I'd turn my back on my family, my loved ones, and pursue the one person that didn't love me, because they were more important, because I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it. Exactly. We need a psychologist or something to explain that one. But that was a big thing, that event. But I moved back to Rochester, and I had a pretty bad habit of heroin at that point. So my plan was to tell my parents I got the flu, detox at home, and get clean. Of course, doing nothing different besides physically moving locations. Um, the next 4 or 5 months were a disaster of drug use. And I, in Baltimore, started, IV using too. So when I got home, that continued. And that's also when crime started. I know the sad reality is for a lot of people when they get to that point, unfortunately for women, a lot of it turns to sex crimes and stuff, and prostitution, and for men, property crime in general, either, anything for anybody. But for me, it was crime and, specifically burglaries and property crime. And that culminated, I got arrested and charged with a whole, sheet of felonies, all burglary related. And, was just sitting there. That was a solid 4 week to 5 week detox, like I've never experienced before in the county jail. Like I had no, I mean, it was basically 15 years of daily use of some substance or another. Finally, for the first time ever, having 5 weeks off. Well, it ended up being longer.
Did you get medical attention, or did they know, or did you just not tell them?
It all depends on at least how it was at the time. So I told them everything, and how it worked then was if you're coming off benzos or alcohol, you get put on 24-hour watch because you could die from those two withdrawals. But that's basically it. You get put on the watch, and if they need to, they give you, more medical attention. If you're coming off anything else, they put you in a medical cell, and basically it's have fun for the next 5 days. I mean, they come around more often than normal. They offer you, Imodium for the upset stomach, extra Tylenol, but not much. And because I was coming off benzos too, they give you a small taper, which helped a lot. But yeah, it's basically, have fun the next 5 days, which was me laying on a floor, totally just throw up everywhere, disgusting. And it lasted a lot longer than that. But the reason I say 5 days is after 5 days, they took me out of the medical unit and put me in a regular pod. So at least I was around people for the next
little while. On other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I spent a year in the county jail.
Make lots of new friends that way.
Oh yeah, exactly. I spent a year there in Monroe County Jail here in Rochester. Every month that went by, those first couple months was like denial, and in reality started to balance each other out. Because at first it's like, I'm going to get out. It always works itself out. Somebody will bail me out, blah, blah, blah. Then the magnitude of the situation hits in. You ain't going anywhere, start reading a little bit of law. These are the guidelines. And then I realized, like, I'm going to do a little bit of time here, even in best case scenario. But we played it out over the course of a little while just because, more stuff continued to happen legally wise. I got more charges months after they brought more charges, and a couple more, all again burglary related. But I ended up getting sentenced to 3.5 years in prison here in New York. With the year I had to go do 2.5. So I went up to prison and started my time. In the county jail, I got high probably 24 times over the 365 days. And it was always weed or somebody who was getting a medication that cheeked it that, once in a blue moon we could get from them. Not many hard drugs, at least that I saw. When I got to prison, it was a whole new story. It was filled. Just anything you wanted within reason at any time, just very expensive. In my first year was kind of a joke. I worked out, played flag football, got a job, and got high all day, every day. And we ate pasta, and I kept to myself, didn't bother nobody. They all kept telling me, though, you're going to go, it's just a matter of time before you get on the radar and go to solitary. They're going to come drug test you. which almost a year to the day of getting to prison, I failed my first drug test and got sent to solitary. And I got sentenced to 30 days for my first failed drug test. That ended up being 150 days because I got in trouble the first night in solitary. I brought tobacco and sleeping pills in, got in trouble with that, got more time added on. And then on day 27, I bought pills from all the guys in the cells around me with the intention of committing suicide. So I got about 40 of them together, and they brought me out of the cell to talk to the psychiatrist, whatever. And while I was out, they searched the cell and found the pills and gave me another 90 days. So that ended up being 150 total. The next year, so from that first day of getting in trouble to the end of my prison time, it ended up being a total of 12 months and 25 days in solitary on 5 different trips. So the first year of prison being relatively easier than I imagined, to the last, year and a half being the worst hell on earth I could have ever expected.
So were you, not by choice, but you became sober in prison in solitary?
Not really. I got high in there a pretty good amount.
You were still
too.
able to get it even after that.
Yep. And
so when did jumping ahead? When did you first choose sobriety, in prison or after you got out?
So I got out. I was out for about 5 months. I got in a little bit of trouble, and they violated me to go back. And that time I was in the county jail, and I knew I was going to do a little bit. I had a phone call with my parents. The combination of being back in jail, an emotional, physical bottom, just everything. The tone of voice they talked to me, I'd never heard before. When I hung up the phone that night was a depression I never felt before. And I also decided, I'm going to give whatever they give, because whatever they were going to sentence me was going to be on some form or another rehab related, so to speak. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give it a try. And that was the seed that was planted. They ended up sentencing me to the boot camp here in New York for parolees, which is boot camp based, up at 5 a.m., push-ups and marching everywhere and everything. But the entire day is filled with AA and rehab and groups. So I genuinely decided to give it a shot, and that was the turning point. That was when I was
when did it turn from doing it for them, doing it for the good graces of the system? When did it turn to I'm doing this for the right reasons? And what changed, or what was the reason for it?
That's an excellent question. I would say the first year and change. So from the day that phone call was, in the next maybe 14 months, I did half-ass sobriety for the system and my family and everything. And I assumed if I'm not doing heroin and cocaine, it's the lesser of two evils.
Right.
So a little bit of alcohol and a lot of smoking weed every day outside of that boot camp place. But then I had a bad relapse with heroin and coke that I somehow didn't get in trouble through the law for. They didn't find out parole. But that period, and it was just, only 5 or 6 days of using. Really, after that, I went back to my meeting. I called my sponsor. I'm big into the 12-step program. Something after that point was if you really want this to work, you got to stop doing it for whoever, or you're just going to continue to have these little periods. You're going to be miserable, and then, you're going to use again, and it's going to get worse each time. And you're probably, because it's, you're using a ton of heroin and coke, it's going to end up being your death. So something around that time, and it definitely wasn't a white light moment like some people have. It was a slow and steady, was you really have to put the same effort into this as you do to go getting your stuff every day. And you got to do it for you. and then everything else will fall into
See,
place.
I don't know if mine was a single day when it happened. I think it was
Yeah.
a transition, which is okay.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a transition. So I'm going to ask you a question that will probably um, piss people off, but I've got to ask it. I drink coffee,
Mhm.
caffeine, and lots of Diet Pepsi, caffeine. That is a drug, a stimulant, whatever you want to say. I'm fine with it in my recovery. Is weed? Is someone sober that is still consuming, ingesting, whatever weed? I the only reason I don't have an opinion on it, and I just because I'm not, I hate it. I tried marijuana. I hated it. I'm an anxiety ridden guy, and it just sent me through the roof. I hated weed.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't care, whatever. Just stay off the road around, don't endanger me or my family. Do what you want. I don't. That's up to you. But I want nothing to do with it. But I know of people that get sober but are smoking a lot of weed, and I guess maybe I'm just asking your opinion. Is
Yeah.
Can you be sober and still smoking weed? And I ask that because the caffeine is
Sure.
a stimulant.
I'm um I'm 50-50 on this. I don't.
Anything's better than nothing. So I don't.
Yeah.
If it helps you get off alcohol, great. I'm just
Ex-
curious.
yeah. So I mean, like a couple years ago, I would have said no, you're not. But getting more into the recovery world, outside of 12 steps, harm reduction works. If somebody can do that and not do heroin and alcohol or whatever, like, again, I doesn't bother me. Good for you. I'm all
Yeah.
for it. I do think though, if somebody is, if you classify yourself as an addict alcoholic with the goal of getting into recovery, while weed is going to be a part of it, I think it's extremely beneficial to have maybe at least a 6 month completely sober period of like learning yourself and your emotions and who you are. And then again, I personally don't do with that, but then maybe if weed's going to become part of your recovery, bring it in. um, I would like think about it on that basis, because I think it's personally important to like learn, like you mentioned earlier with the holidays and how to be sober at a holiday and things like that. Because I know how I did it is I stopped the alcohol, heroin, and coke, but then I needed weed 6-7 times a day, every single day, to do anything. Wake up, go to work, get in the car. And it was basically like, okay, yes, the harder stuff's gone and it's a little bit of a benefit, but I also didn't face any of the core issues, because I just also had something to now escape
Yeah,
reality for.
and I agree with what you're saying. The harm reduction, which I never even heard that term until this past year, and I
Mhm.
agree completely.
Yeah.
Um, I but I can see that, and I also see on the other hand, I I I can caffeine. I still have to work on my coping skills. Caffeine doesn't
Yeah.
help me cope with whatever situation.
Yeah.
It helps, but you know what I'm saying. It's not the coping thing that maybe weed is. That's I see both sides of the coin, and I'm always curious
Sure.
how people are on it. But again, my thing is if um, I'd much rather someone smoking weed than drinking
Yeah.
a
Oh yeah.
hundredfold over that.
Yep. In my second little piece of that was, which isn't so much now with the legality of it, but my other issue with weed was when I was first doing it in early recovery, it took me out of recovery zone. So like it wasn't major, but when I was getting high, that would be, I don't really want to go to a meeting because then people are going to say something to me or do this. So I wouldn't do that. Then I'm driving to some not so good neighborhoods to get it, which not often, but once every 10 times there'd be that guy, yo, I got this, which is the other stuff. So there's these little like lifestyle things that went along with it that I didn't like. Um,
You did a great impersonation of yourself stoned there too. That was really good. How you did that. Yeah, that was good. Yeah, head movement, everything. You sold it perfectly.
Yeah. Been there.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah, but I totally get what you're saying, and I agree. I'm at no point to judge anybody. Like, here's another example. I take an antidepressant. I have since the concussions. Some people have argued that is a drug, or like people who take Suboxone or buprenorphine or heroin or opioid addicts coming off them. That stuff saved my life. Yeah. I'm a huge proponent for it. So I really feel no point to judge when Suboxone saved my life if we save some,
I still pop a Zoloft every day. I'm relying on that to help me with anxiety or whatever. And yet, I work on the skills. So am I cheating myself out of developing the proper way to cope with anxiety by still popping that? So and that's why I ask. I'm not judging.
No, I know.
I know that's a hot topic and incredible.
Yeah, it's a great topic. It's a one that I think has to be discussed more. But yeah, and I think we could look at like our patterns around stuff too. I like I just said a minute ago, I take an antidepressant too, and it's like if I'm eating 2 or 3 times my dose, I got to look at that. What is the behavior behind it or the feelings? Same thing I would say if somebody does choose to, smoke weed during their recovery, like, is it hey, I have a little bit before bed, I unwind, or is it like I need it 5-6 times a day? Maybe if it is the latter, you got to look into it a little bit more and see, okay, is there something I'm still avoiding, or is there behaviors going on here? So that's kind of how I would analyze it and look at it.
You and I both coming from football background, I go with steroids. Someone that's out of shape, they start, I'm going to start a weightlifting program. Well, it takes a lot of hard effort and it pays off. Someone that walks in the room looking like Adonis, and yet they're taking steroids.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, they're healthy, or healthier looking, or what I'm saying compared to where they were, but have they actually learned how to be healthy, or are they falsely getting there? Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's
a great analogy.
I think it's just got to be. We all have to write our own path to do this thing. And what works for you is not going to be the same for me, and vice versa. And that's why I come from an AA background. But I take in anything and everything. I will never tell the only program I'll ever push on someone is the program that works for them.
Sure.
Because that's, I think I'll talk about different programs, but you got to pick and choose what's going to work for you. And if smoking weed gets you not drinking and not doing whatever, fire up, dude. As far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree.
But I get asked that a lot. So
yeah.
So what is let's jump ahead. Sober Dog Recovery. Obviously, it's a young thing, and you're making me feel really old because anytime dog is into it, that's a young. But are you is it a younger focus? Is it where's it come from?
So
let me run this on the bottom too, just so you guys, if anyone's looking to get a hold of. Here's a couple of things. Go ahead.
Awesome, thank you. So probably around a year or so after I got out, I saw a buddy of mine's parents at the store, and I asked him, how's Tim doing? And, he's doing great, married, kids, just bought a house, blah blah blah. How you doing? And like in my mind, the answer to that question is, I just got out of prison. I live at home. I'm craving every drug known to man. I'm broke and I'm losing my mind.
Other than that, dandy.
But I didn't want to lie to him. And, I got in enough trouble to where it was in the newspaper and stuff, but not a lot. So like there was stories about one person had a story that I had a gun and broke into a house, which isn't true at all. No gun, no weapon, but whatever. So the whole point of that was I decided you know what, I'm going to get it all out there and share it. And I'm a huge animal lover. Always been my entire life. Dogs are something that are my serenity, meditation, all of that rolled into one. I could just sit there and pet a dog and just lose time. So I called it Sober Dogs and started with a blog and just started sharing, experience with everything from
How
addiction.
important was sharing your life as
Very,
far as for your recovery? How important was that?
incredibly important.
A lot of secrets you're revealing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because, the goal, or, and a lot of times this is a societal thing, especially with recovery, anything, the goal is to help the other, this and that. But, a good friend of mine that I have done videos and stuff with, Sean Cuddy, he has a podcast on recovery, and he mentioned something sometime, and it's like, even the best intended programs, like, there's always that piece for ourselves. He said it in a more elegant way, but that was a great way to put it too, because just like you mentioned, it's huge getting that off my chest, so to speak, and putting it out to the world, like, hey, that's who I am, that's the real story, take it or leave it. Back to that people pleasing thing too. Some people may not hire me because of that, or may not do this, but it is what it is. So hopefully somebody somewhere can benefit from it. And I know I absolutely have. And then fast forward 3.5 years, I've been able to branch out with YouTube and social media, TikTok, and, do come full circle I have Parole actually now contacting me to come do work groups with them and the parole officers. I'm giving, I get to, they're like, we want to know what was going through your mind the day you came in high, what was going through your mind when you relapsed, would you tell us the truth, all these things, and tell us from the other side of the table. And I get to do that and do seminars around the county and the state and things. And it's just been an awesome journey with all that stuff mixed in. I haven't incorporated dogs as much as I would like to. I don't really know how as much, if I had like an actual like clubhouse or something, I could have dogs there, but it's more in the name now and just because of being an animal lover.
Just give these out as snacks.
Is that your snack?
This is, you know what? I'm not going to do it now, but I have eaten these before just to be stupid, and they're not bad. They actually are not bad. But my guy's he's not in the room right now. He was not thrilled with our conversation. But no, it's there's so much with the dogs. I love that. I think getting the story out helped so many people. But it wasn't until I got my story out that I actually heard my story. I actually spit it out onto the table, and then I was actually able to hear it and see it and go, oh my God, and start to understand myself more. I couldn't get to it when it was in here. It wasn't until I talked to someone else that was struggling and I told some of these things that it was like, first time I really opened, and it happens periodically, it's almost like I'm hearing it for the first time. It's like, oh, wow, that makes sense. That explains, Jeff, why you're so screwed up or why this and that. So
that is such a unique perspective. I have never thought about it that way. Like, I've shared at plenty of 12-step meetings, but it's like the combination of the public speaking and being in front of people, and then it's being done when it's done. It's not recorded or anything. Like, I'm not listening to myself, but something like this or an article or whatever, sometimes you get to go back and see it or do this and that. That's an incredible point. I never really looked at.
I can't get to it when it's inside. It's when I open it up. That's when I start to understand myself more. Yeah. And then I can fix it. I can't fix what I can't see, I guess.
Yeah, that is. That's awesome. And I never looked at it that way.
It's a win-win because it helps other people too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just hearing you with some of the struggles, and I'm sitting there, and that's why, when I was asking about when you got sober, because in prison, as someone that hasn't been there, it's like, why would anyone even contemplate sobriety while in prison? I would be, bring on whatever's going to take me away from this hell.
Mm-hmm.
I'll worry about sobriety when I get out. I don't. I'm always amazed people that are lifers that get sober in prison,
Yeah.
and it's like good for them, but I don't know. Today I'm thinking, why? What I don't want to deal with those feelings.
Yeah,
but everyone's different.
Totally agree. And I had that mindset, the whole time of why would I want to deal with it? And solitary just made it so much worse. I remember after the first time I got out of solitary, they moved me to a new prison, and I'm sitting on my bed in the general population unit, and like I am just beyond suicidal from 5 months of isolation. And the only thing I knew that could help me cope was to get high. But if I get high, I go right back. And it was this battle for an hour. And some guy said, you got any smokes? If you do, come to the bathroom, give me 10. And I just went right back. The only thing that kept me from not doing more in there is finances, because it's very expensive. And then just the threat of the consequences, which is excessive solitary, which I guess really didn't deter me much at all, because I ended up doing all of it, So
the lure of the relief, whether in prison or just in my day-to-day, is so easy for me to use then the word tomorrow, because I got to quit. But the lure of what a crappy day, thank God, because tomorrow morning when I wake up, I am going to start then.
Yep. I'll start then.
Because today's there's just too much.
Yeah.
And that's what the lure of what it was, when I love, I love pain pills, and I love them. Thank God I've got a wife, and I got people that go, here, we'll just hold on to those, and, whatever, because they're good stuff. Mm-hmm. I can totally get how people can, be addicted to it. Mm-hmm. But booze, pills, it works. It's fast. It's instantaneous. I want instant gratification. I feel like crap this moment. Well, if you sit down and meditate for 3 hours and do some exercise, and we're going to sing some songs, you'll feel much better. Or I could pop this and drink this, and I'll like that feel, that's when tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this tomorrow. And I just hate it. I hate it now.
Yeah. The crazy part about that is how many thousands of times we said that tomorrow, and meant it.
Totally meant it.
Totally. That's what I talked
to. How much beer I've thrown away? I mean, thrown away good unopened beer that then I went the next day and rebought.
Yeah.
I mean, just.
I still do that daily with this thing. Yeah. I think I've thrown a dozen vapes out there. I still use nicotine, substantially, and it's like. It's that,
but it's true. I'm one for. I chewed tobacco all through college, and so I know the tobacco thing, and I've got one success out of 500 attempts at quitting. I won't touch a cigar, none of it, because I'm not going through that again. And I gotta just tattoo on my forehead. Alcohol's the same way. If I was to drink tonight, my problem is not that I'm going to wake up tomorrow and have a hangover. Who cares? That's gone in a few hours. That's easy. If I have a drink tonight, what's going to happen tomorrow, I will have opened up the cycle and got it rolling again. And getting that thing stopped again is a mother. And it's not, people go, well, how are you going to feel in the morning? I'll be hungover. That's no reason to quit. Hangovers are gone in no time. Mm-hmm. That's forgotten. We got to focus on the longer type things, and it's very easy. You're right, and that's why tomorrow I'll just use that word again.
Yeah.
Who wants to be a millionaire? I'll phone a friend. My lifeline was the word tomorrow.
Yeah.
I promise you. I promise you. I promise myself.
Yep.
What is it? tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow. That's it. That's
It's a bitch.
Yeah. That's like saying, I've heard a lot is, I know I got another drunk in me or another, whatever, but maybe not another recovery. Like you said, getting that train stopped. Oh,
yeah. Just like the tobacco, I've got one success out of 500. And people, I had one relapse, it goes, oh, you've only had, one relapse. I've had 2 day ones, technically. No, I've had 9 million day ones.
Yeah.
It just, I've had just a couple of day twos is the thing. I've had day ones out the wazoo.
Yeah.
So, I can't go back there.
Did you totally quit tobacco?
Yeah. In my 30s, and that
good
was
for you.
That was brutal. I mean, that was one that, and this is the other thing. And Kyle, we'll have to have you back on, and don't leave Terry, because I'm going to slam you in a minute, Terry Kahn. But this is Jeff is up here. And people, is it a disease? Is it alcoholism a disease? If it's not, all that argument. I don't care what you call it. I don't care. I call it my situation a lot, just to make people. Well, are you happy with that word? The bottom line is none of that's going to change the fact that if I drink, bad things are going to happen. And I don't mean like a DUI. Those things could. I'm just talking the cycle will hit. And my head is so strong, even when I was drinking. And the same thing with tobacco. I remember bringing a beer to my lips, and I felt a buzz before it even got into my system. Just because I knew I could feel that relief and it hadn't even gotten into my system. That's up here. That's not just a chemical reaction in my, blood or with my liver or whatever.
The high before the high.
The high before the high. I never heard that before.
Oh yeah.
But that's exactly it. The high before the high.
It's in a similar thing, like with opioids and heroin. They always talk about you could be in full blown withdrawal on the ground, fetal position, throwing up. You get that call, hey, I got it, 10 minutes away. You immediately start to feel better, and it's nowhere. It's just as far as away as it was a minute ago.
A second, yeah.
But yeah.
And that's so interesting how that works.
Yeah, all up here. It's crazy. Back to those psychological. That's why I think it is so important. People do talk about like, in 12-step stuff, all we got is today, which I agree with. But at the same time, I do understand that like the longer you're away from something, I could taste everything that first week and month. It's a lot harder to taste now. And if I do, it's a lot shorter span. So I think it is a huge benefit the longer being away from something. Not that at any given time I can't pick up, but I don't taste what I used to taste that first sip today like I did 4 years ago.
Do you so what's your sobriety? How long do you have?
Right now it's 11/25/18 is my sobriety date, and like you, I had a year. Then I had a 5-day relapse. Then I had another year. Then I had a 5-day relapse, and then I got the 3 and change now. So,
do you still have cravings?
Yes, but they are kind of like I just explained. The first month, if I got a craving, it was a half hour debilitating. A panic attack times 5. Now it's like a 2-3 minute thought that I've gotten a lot better at using tools of when it comes, if I can pick that phone up, I can get rid of it usually in like 50 to 60 seconds. If I sit and dwell on it, it'll be 3 to 5 minutes, but it's a lot weaker and less, but definitely still here and there,
Yeah. My early days were, don't think about beer. Don't think about beer. Don't think about beer. Don't think about beer. And of course, it was, this is a bitch. Well, gee, I wonder why. Now it's get on the phone and start talking about, the game. And speaking of Terry,
Sure.
Yes, I am a Bearcat fan. I played for the Bearcats. So we do have a big game. Terry is a Alabama fan, and we've got Terry and I have a date with Destiny Friday at 3:30 Eastern time. So
oh boy,
yeah, no, Bearcats are that's where I played. So
Saturday morning on the podcast, you could talk about it if you do one.
Well, I'll just tell you, you could guess if you missed the score. If there is a podcast on, then you'll know who won. If there is no one on, and there is no show Saturday morning, you'll know who won, because I'll be not wanting to face the Terrys of the world. But no, that's it's going to be a tough road for him. But well, Kyle, got to have you back on. Way too much, and haven't even gotten started. But thank you so much. Incredible story. I got your stuff on the bottom. Sober Dogs. I just put in Sober Dogs Recovery in Google, and it popped you right up. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure people can find you there. And what all are you doing? Are you doing podcasts? Can they get a hold of you with things? Are you doing any group work? What's
I am open to whatever, anyone can reach out to me. Like you said, if you just type it in on Google, the website comes up. My email, soberdogs2 at Gmail, and then all social media. If you just type in Sober Dogs, it pops up. And I'm open. YouTube is kind of the main focus right now. YouTube and some social media, but I hop on podcasts with people, various groups here and there, do whatever, and then a lot of local stuff with seminars and things here in Rochester. But I'd love to connect and talk with people. And thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, you'll be back for sure. Thank you so much.
We have so much in common. It's awesome.
Yeah, we all do. The journeys are all different, but anyways. So thanks again, Kyle. Sober Dog Recovery, and we will be back Thursday evening. And Terry, I hope to see you Saturday morning. If I don't see you Saturday morning, you'll know why. But it's been a good season anyways. All right, buddy. Have a great one.
Thank you. You too.
See you, Kyle.